Hello and welcome to another edition of ChinnyVision. This time we're firing up our Lotuses for Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 on the Amiga. Lotus Turbo Challenge 1 was a big hit across the 8 and 16-bit formats, with the split screens you can see here, player 1 in the top, player 2 in the bottom. Did restrict your view a bit if you're on one player mode because you just had this animation going on the bottom there. But it was a pretty good game on all systems. As I say, there were versions for the 8-bits and the 16-bits, and it became a bit of a hit. Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 only came out on the 16-bits, and we're looking at the Amiga version today. So did it manage to fix some of those problems with Lotus 1? Well, let's take a look. Starts off with this rather iconic music, and you get the Lotus here flashing its headlights at you like some kind of computer dogger. But never mind, it was a rather iconic sequence in its day. But all in all, rather nice intro sequence and some rather excellent music. Game, of course, programmed by Magnetic Fields, who brought us Supercars and Lotus 1 and all sorts of other fantastic games. Lovely menu screen here, lots and lots of options. Password to skip through to further levels as you progress through the game. You can put your name in, manual or auto gears. You can select accelerate by the fire button, and you can also select keyboard controls, all sorts of different things here. Fantastic stuff. Even a link to play against another Amiga head-to-head. Nice bit of music here as we load up the level, and we start off on the forest course, which is the easiest level. And you see straight away we've got full screen, no windowing anymore, which is a massive, massive advantage. The whole problem with Lotus 1 is that you end up with this restricted view, especially going up and down hills, and this completely does away with it unless of course you're actually playing in two-player mode. Controls have been refined, the car handles so much better, it doesn't quite skid around corners so badly, it just grips a little bit more. Graphics are fast and smooth. Again, I think they've just slightly refined the game's engine, it just seems to be that little bit smoother and that little bit faster. And they just seem to really nail the handling, so it is much more precise. And the other thing is this variation of the scenery. As we drove through some water there, and you're going to see a lot more of that later in the game. You can even jump over the water there and go by jumping over the logs. Big variation with the levels, all sorts of different things you're going to play through. Night levels, fog levels, snow and ice, all sorts. This is the night level, and what that basically means is reduced visibility ahead, which is a trick they also use for the fog level as well. One criticism I have of this game is you can't actually sustain damage to your car. In Lotus 1, if you banged your car, you sustained damage, and eventually you wouldn't be able to go on any further, and you had to visit the pits as well to mend your car. This is done away with in this game. It is a pure racer. There's no damage. As if you hit anything, all you lose is time. Next level is the fog level. Same trick as the nighttime level really, except it's grey in front of you as opposed to black. Little bit of a twisty course. There's a moral on the course there, as you can see. Again, it's just that lovely variety that you get in Lotus 2. It's not just all sunny skies and dry days. There's a lot of variety and a big ramping up of the difficulty as you go through the levels. The next level is the snow level, and again you've got to contend with something completely different because the handling of the car is completely changed from the levels before. You're skidding around all over the place. It's tiny touches to the controls to make movements. It really makes you think. It's a nice thing to try out, although frankly I don't really want to be driving 138 miles an hour over snow and ice. Straight on from that we have the desert level with some really nice vistas ahead of you, really good draw distances that you can see here. One of the kind of hallmarks of this game really. And keeping the variety up, we get onto the motorway level, and you can actually drive on the wrong side of the road, although there is only one car coming the other way at any one time, and it's always a white Lotus. In fact, all the competitors in this game are actually Lotuses. There are no other cars. Slightly reminiscent of that opening bit of Outrun, actually, with the two roads running side by side, except, of course, that was all one-way traffic. Move on to the marsh level, which basically means lots and lots of water around, or perhaps we should call it the Somerset Levels level. And if you go off the track, you end up knee deep in water, as you can see just happen there. And again, this is getting quite difficult now, and we're on to the storm level, which is the final level, and you've got thunder, lightning and all sorts of things going on. And one of the nice things about Lotus, like Outrun, is when you run out of time, your car slows down. So if you are close to the end of the level, you can kind of coast over the finish line and still get another injection of time. And as you can see there, we drove over something in the road that gave us a turbo, which I haven't seen in Lotus 2 before, or at least I certainly don't remember. And anyone who's played Lotus 3 in the series knows that's a big feature of Lotus 3, where you get these turbo sections where you can speed up the car. The real fun begins with Lotus 2 in 2-player mode, and you go back to this familiar split screen view, and you can either both play on joysticks, or player 2 can play on keyboards, or you can even do a head-to-head full screen if you like. It really is the unique selling point of Lotus. It's enormous fun playing against a mate with the split screens, and yes, going back to this kind of window thing, you do end up with this problem that Lotus 1 has. We can't see ahead all the time with the hills. But to be honest, it's a fairly good payoff for the amount of fun in 2-player mode, and at least they fixed this problem where in 1-player mode in Lotus 1 you end up in a window regardless. Overall, Lotus 2 is one of the iconic racing games on the Amiga. It still plays really well today, the handling is spot on. Yes, there are problems with the game, the fact there's no crashes, and yes, the sound effects from the engine do sound a bit like a vacuum cleaner, to the detriment of all the other fantastic sound in the game. But you know, it's still an iconic game, it's still enormous fun. Go out and play it today because it's still one of the Amiga's top racers.